Very difficult issues cannot be resolved with a bumper sticker or a placard. Not that they don't have their place, but very complex and hot-button issues such as abortion cannot be resolved with a sign. We need to seriously examine. I have a request. Whatever side of the fence you may be on, whether pro-abortion or anti-abortion, my request is that you examine your position, that you think about your position, that you re-examine your position. You may be completely solid in your thoughts on the issue, but I want you to think about your position one more time. Recently, a murder took place. Dr. Tiller, he was a well-known abortionist who practiced late-term abortions. It's been known that he was willing to abort that child even on its due date. Some of you may think that is just absolutely heroic. Others of you cringe, and rightly so. Since his death, there has been a lot of talk about abortion, a lot of talk about the issue again. But I want to ask you, do you believe a woman has a right to her own body? And what does that really mean? When we see those bumper stickers, those signs that go up, a woman has a right to her own body, are we saying that she has an absolute right to her own body? Absolutely? That there is no case where her rights don't impede on the rights of others? When we talk about rights, by the way, we're talking about two different kinds of rights. The statement, a woman has a right to her own body, there's an assumption going on there. The assumption is that her rights are transcendent. They come down from a higher code. Some will argue that her rights are given to her by Roe versus Wade. But this is a circular argumentation. Her rights don't come from Roe versus Wade, but her rights must come from a source outside of the law. The law is a bedrock that we adhere to, but where does these laws come from? Where do we get our rights? The Constitution declares that we have unalienable rights given to us by God. And if you believe that a woman has a right to kill the living human being inside her, I would highly doubt that God would concede or approve of such an action. We don't have the right to hurt other people. Science has declared that a living human genome, a living being, can be identified in the court of law through the genetic structure, through the DNA. It's called the DNA fingerprint. And the life of that child inside the womb has distinct DNA from its mother. So, from the very point of extraction of DNA of that child, you will identify that child as an individual. Do we have the right to hurt other individuals? To kill other individuals? The Ten Commandments forbids us to kill, and there is a difference between wartime. Murder is the act of taking someone else's life. And so when a woman, a mother, takes the life of her unborn baby, in effect, this is taking someone's life, stripping them of the ability to live, breathe, have a life of their own. You would say, well, this child is utterly dependent on the mother, and therefore it is a part of the mother's body. But science disagrees with you. The DNA fingerprint disagrees with you. That little living human being, that person growing in the mother's womb, is distinct and different, and science proves it. In a court of law, it proves it. Criminal cases, guilt or innocence, are determined by this very simple, powerful fact that DNA is a genetic series of numbers, series of switches, if you will, that identify an individual more accurately than the fingerprint itself. So, what I'm hoping here is that through discussion, we could maybe look again at the importance, the sanctity of life. It has been said that Dr. Tiller has aborted over 60,000 children. 60,000 children. That's a lot of lives. He was a wealthy man, and he took the lives of unborn babies with fingerprints and toenails and fingernails and eyes and brains and individual identification markers that can be proven in a court of law that they were distinct and different persons from their mother. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are two positions here, pro-abortion, anti-abortion, but there's that middle ground which is pro-choice. But my question is, does a woman have the right to murder the unborn child who is distinct from her, and science can verify this distinction through DNA markers, through the DNA fingerprint? Does that woman have the right to take the life of this person? I think this should be settled in a court of law, and I'm hoping that many who once were duped by the pro-abortion movement, you see, I do believe that God grants us unalienable rights, and there is nothing more important for us as individuals but to care for those who are less fortunate, who don't have a voice. We're called to shore up the young, the weak amongst us, to fight for those who are less fortunate. And what could be more important than our own offspring, our own kind, our children? And to let this great evil continue is a travesty and a crime against humanity. So my hope is that you may rethink your position, since science has spoken so clearly about the individual and its DNA fingerprint.